and ask that you sort of gather around. Is everybody comfortable for just a bit? And can you see the flowers and our precious Anne that we're here to honor today? Let's start with just a moment looking out in the ocean and help Anne to know that she is on that very special journey of unconditional love. That sometimes when our bodies get so old that they can't handle it anymore, our higher power knows it's time to set her on that special journey of unconditional love. And most importantly, let's say Godspeed, Anne, and even if we feel a little bit of nostalgia or a little bit of sadness at saying goodbye, know that on the other side, as she's making this wonderful journey and transition, they're all saying, welcome home, Anne. We're so glad you're back. Let's bow our heads, please. Father, Mother, God, thank you for bringing this special spirit into our lives. Thank you for helping her to give us so much wisdom and to know especially that life is meant to be lived. Sometimes we go through challenges, but also we go through so many good times. And if we didn't have the challenges, we wouldn't appreciate the good times. Most especially be with Janet and Phil and some of the others that have spent so much unconditional love and time with our Anne as we started her on her journey. Most especially know that life is always good, whether we're in our human spirit or whether we're in our transitional side. And most especially know that we want to thank you for this beautiful life that has graced our doors and our time together. Amen. Amen. I wanted to start this morning. I love that saying, Celebration of Life. You know, there was a time when the word death for me meant a lot of fear. And as I've grown in the spirit of unity and in the spirit of unconditional love, I realize that that's what my God is all about, that spirit of unconditional love. And, you know, I feel like we're all spiritual beings here on a human journey, and this is school. There were 3 gifts especially that Anne gave to me, and I would like to share them with you. The first gift that she taught me was patience. She taught me how to age gracefully. She taught me sometimes things happen, and in order for those things to move forward, we have to do things that we don't like to do. But ultimately, in learning those lessons, we learn those special gifts. And the first gift with how to age gracefully is patience. If there's one thing Anne taught me, is you don't have to like something, but sometimes you're totally powerless over it, and you have to practice patience. That started with her health deteriorating, and I remember when she came and we used to play bridge, and suddenly she found out that she had a bit of a problem with her eyes. But I'll tell you, she still liked fashion, and she still loved to play cards. And even when she was not able to read any longer, she loved those books on tape that Janet and Phil were so wonderful to find for her. The second gift that I have learned from Anne was acceptance. You know, sometimes I'd watch her moan and complain and carry on, and we'd talk a bit about it, and she'd say, Marcia, I just have to vent. I don't like what's happening to me. And there's something that I wanted to read that I thought was so important that I read to Anne many moons ago. And it is on acceptance. A magical potion is available to us today. That potion is called acceptance. We are asked to accept many things, ourselves as we are, our feelings, our needs, our choices, and certain status of our being. We have to accept other people as they are. We have to accept our problems, but we also get to accept our blessings. We have to accept where we live, our work, our tasks, and our level of performance. Resistance will not move us forward, nor will it eliminate the undesirable. But even our resistance may need to be accepted. Even resistance yields to and is changed by acceptance. Acceptance is the magic that makes change possible. It is not forever. It is just for the present moment. Acceptance is the magic that makes our present circumstances good. It brings peace and contentment and opens the door to growth, change, and moving forward. It shines the light of positive energy on all that we have and all that we are. Within the framework of acceptance, we figure out what we need to do to take care of ourselves. Acceptance empowers the positive, and it tells God we have surrendered to His plan. We have mastered today's lesson and are ready to move on. And one of the times we talked about that, as Anne was going through her last journey, she became pretty discouraged at times, as some of us know, and kept asking, why am I still here? And one of the things that I know, sometimes all we can do is pray for our highest good and pray for the acceptance to know at some point in time what it was about. And I can be honest with you, there were times that Janet and I would kind of giggle, and I'd giggle with Ann. I'd say, you're like the cat that has 9 lives. We've said goodbye to you quite a few times. And one of the things towards the end that I really saw and helped me so much is she taught me the gift of trusting the process. You know, she was very much filled with fear when she thought about first making her journey or her transition. She wasn't quite ready. She still had other lessons to learn. And I think that was the beauty of having Janet and Phil there. I think she was able to look at them and learn from their lessons. And then the most beautiful thing was when she knew it was time to have hospice. And I just kept thinking, that's when I have to be honest with you, I was questioning. And yet by hospice coming, she learned that gift of humility. She learned that she couldn't always be in charge, that she had to give over her life and let someone else help her with it. And those beautiful hospice people helped her know that as our body wears out and as our spirit starts becoming more and more in the forefront, it's all right sometimes to just sit back and wait to move forward. And that was the gift that Anne gave us towards the end. It was just so beautiful for me to watch her go from a period of dementia where we think, oh, please, God, take her, to becoming coherent, to getting into acceptance, to moving forward into knowing there was a God, and it certainly isn't us. It's on His time and not ours. And most importantly, knowing that she still had her lesson of that unconditional love. She became so accepting of her last few days and wanted to spend time. She said it helped her stay out of herself when we stopped in to see her. And she had such a special love in her heart. And not only did she have such love, but Janet and Phil and I and Kathy and some of us went from not wanting to go because we didn't want to see her suffer to being able to go and accept it. So not only did she help herself, but she helped all of us. And that's what I don't want us ever to forget. We need each other. You put one hand on one person and one on the other, and our souls are all connected in this unconditional love. So with that, that's some of the gifts that she showed me. And I would like to ask Janet, you know, Anne lived a beautiful life, and one of the things Phil said Sunday that I thought was so appropriate, you know, Marcia, she had 70 good years before she came to Amelia. We all have seen her in her later life, but she had such a beautiful life. And so that's why I think it's so neat that Phil and Janet have consented. We're going to start with Janet telling a little bit about Anne's life.
Yeah, I'd like to just talk a little bit about her early life. Some people know a little bit. I know she shared snippets with people, but she led quite an interesting life. She was born in Bremen, Germany in June of 1920, and then moved to Bremerhaven soon after. She never really spent much time in Bremen. She grew up in Bremerhaven. She grew up during the German Depression, during the German economy crisis in the 1930s, which was far worse than ours. So she grew up in a hard life, with a hard life, but I think her life was simple. She had a good childhood with loving parents and 2 brothers that she loved very much, one who is still alive in Germany. And she went to school. After she graduated high school, she went to secretarial school and got a degree in secretarial school. And when she was 18, she was approached by the military, the German military, and was given a choice: work in a factory or work in an office. So she chose the office. She went to Berlin and she worked for the military high command. And this was a really interesting time for her because she worked directly under Hitler's primary generals, and she knew them all, and she was a witness to everything that was going on during that time. She was a witness to when his generals realized that he was somewhat of a maniac. She was 5 minutes away when they tried to assassinate him with a bomb. And, you know, her family never accepted the Nazi way. She just told me recently that her father used to sit and listen to the radio to forbidden programs that he would have been taken away if the Nazis had known he was doing it. He never was part of the Nazis. He was against the Nazis, and he listened to all the radio programs that were anti-Nazi and took a big risk in doing it. And, you know, I never knew that. She just told me that like a month ago, so I thought that was interesting. When Berlin fell, when the Allied armies finally came into Berlin, they were all in big trouble, of course, and everything was falling apart rapidly, and a few of the staff members, a lot of the staff members got on a bus and tried to escape Berlin. They were on a bus for 3 days trying to get out of Berlin. They didn't make it. They were captured, and she was sent to what was loosely called a prison. It was actually a castle in Bavaria. She said it really wasn't half bad. And she spent 3 months there, and then the Americans recruited her to work as an interpreter for the American occupation. And that is where she met my father. So they met and got married over there, and then he brought her to America around 1950. And she came to America, and they traveled to various places. He was still active military, so they traveled to various places throughout the United States. And then he retired, and they settled in Yuma, Arizona. And that is where they lived and settled. My father was a retired military, worked for the civil service at the Yuma Proving Grounds. And my mother then got busy making a family. And so if you ask my mom, if you ask my mother, what is the best time of her life, she always said, hands down, that the best time of her life was when she was a young stay-at-home mom raising 2 little girls. And she loved that time. She embraced it. My childhood memories are filled with things like going to the park every day and going to the pool every day during the summer, being read to every night, family vacations. I mean, she really took motherhood to heart, and it was what she truly loved doing. And as a result, my sister and I grew up slightly spoiled. And, you know, we got pretty much everything we asked for. We were pretty spoiled. But I do remember a lot of love and a lot of sacrifice. Finally, when I was 10 years old, she decided to go to work. And the reason she wanted to go to work was so we could get a built-in swimming pool. Yay! So we got our built-in swimming pool, and she went to work, and she worked from that point forward pretty much all of her career. But the things I remember the most about my mother was how much she encouraged me. She saw in me at an early age a propensity for academics. And so for as long as I can remember, my mother would say, "You're going to college. And whatever you do, don't get married before you get your degree." She was kind of the opposite of a lot of mothers in that time. She was an early women's libber. She would say, "You don't need a man." And she'd say, "Go to college, get a degree, get a career, and then maybe you can consider dating somebody." But she was just so, you know, she really pushed me to challenge myself and to be an independent woman. And she saw an independence in me, and she always pushed me to do that, to be independent. When I was in 1st grade, I wanted to ride my bike to school. It was just a few blocks away, and the policy in the school was that 1st graders couldn't ride their bikes. They were too young, didn't know the way. So my mother went to the principal and said, "My daughter can ride her bike to school." And the principal said, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you can if you follow her and make sure that she can ride her bike safely to school, we'll let her ride her bike. And so that's what she did. She followed me the first time and made sure I knew the way and made sure I was safe and crossed the crosswalk safely. And from that point forward, I was the only first grader in my school that got to ride her bike to school. And she was always like that, always pushing me to be independent. When she saw that I was a reader, she never censored anything I read. When I was 11, 12, 13 years old, I was reading everything from Truman Capote to Harold Robbins. She didn't care. She figured I was getting an education. And if I liked doing it, then more power to it. And so she always had that attitude that I should just strive for whatever I wanted. And probably the thing I remember the most about what she used to say to me was, you can be anything you want to be. And she really meant that. I mean, she always, when I was in college, she always encouraged me to take the harder courses. Quit worrying about getting an A. Just challenge yourself. Just take those harder courses. But she always, that's the one thing I remember about her probably more than anything else, was how much she told me that I could just do whatever I wanted, that I had the capability, the ability to do anything I wanted to do. And that's one of the things I'm most grateful for, is I can still hear her voice telling me that when I'm up against a problem. I can hear her saying, you can do this, you can do anything you want. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'll never forget how she encouraged me all my life. So I just thank you, Mom, and I love you. And now Phil's going to talk a little bit about how he knew.
So I got the pleasure of meeting Ann in kind of the prime of her life back in 1987. Janet and I had been dating for a couple of months and decided to get married. And so we met her in Tacoma. I first met her in Tacoma, Washington, and was about to marry Janet in a couple of days. And she pulled me aside and she said, Janet's special, you better be good to her, or you'll have me to deal with. So from then on, I dealt in fear pretty much. But we got to be very good friends, and all the jokes about the mothers-in-law and all that, we never had any issues at all. We were in many ways close and more like friends than mother-in-law. And so we played golf together. She was a very boring golfer, as John can attest. With golf, it gets exciting when you're out in the woods looking for your ball. She never had that problem. She just stood up every time, hit it straight 150 yards down the fairway, and off it went. And it was kind of boring to play with her, because here was I out in the woods going, I'll be right back, I'll find my ball, and she was always there. So we played golf for years until her health kind of took that away from her. And we played cards and games, and she loved bridge and Uno, and she unfortunately beat me all the time. But I always remember a couple things that stuck in my mind was when we were about to get married, and my mother and Janet's mother were there together. We were on our way to get to the wedding, and my mother said, now, I want you to know that my son, Philip, he's very special to me, and she said, and Ann cut her off and said, no, hold on just a minute, so's Janet. And so that was kind of the end of the mutual respect for each other from then on. And then a few months later, we went to buy a house, and she pulled Janet aside and she said, well, what happens if you guys don't work out together? You get to keep the house, right? And that was the case. I'd signed off a homestead exemption or something, and so I wasn't worried about it, but she was always protective of Janet and a good mother, and she let me know that she wanted Janet well taken care of, and that she had spoiled her, and it was my duty to spoil her as well. And so the other thing that with Ann for the first 15, 18 years or so, I could always count on was on an early visit, I mentioned to her that I loved burnt cookies. And so she made a point every year of making me chocolate chip cookies. And even though she couldn't stand the sight of them, she deliberately burned them to a crisp and put them in a can and mailed them up to us in Alaska. And every Christmas I had petit fours and burnt chocolate chip cookies to look forward to. And then finally she got to where she couldn't see much anymore, so she had to quit baking. So that was kind of a letdown there for me. But for the 15 years that it lasted, she was always religious about it. And then we started noticing 10 years ago that it seemed like she was starting to lose her eyesight and her hearing and all that. And Janet and I would talk about it, and we'd be concerned about it because she was, by that time, in her early 80s. And so just about the time we'd written her off as being too blind to see anymore, we'd go down to Vegas to visit her, and I'd say, yeah, I hope your mother can see us and, you know, still go out and enjoy dinner and all that. And she'd say, oh, yeah, how are you kids? Oh, Janet, look at your new earrings. And she could spot them. And this was from 10 feet away. And she'd say, oh, is that a Gucci purse? And, oh, those are new shoes. And she wasn't as blind as she let on to be, and I don't think she was half as deaf as she let on to be either. But she was a great mother-in-law and a really good friend, and we're sorry to see her go, but she had a wonderful life, and I'm glad I got to share the last 30% of it with her, 25 years that we got to know her. And I wanted to let you know why we had our Celebration of Life here, because when she first moved to Florida to live with us, I used to walk the puppies, and early on she would come and walk on the beach with me, and then later on she wasn't able to walk that far, so she'd come to here and sit on the bench and meet people and sit and watch the sunset and all that, and then she'd wait for me until I came back with the doggies. So we thought it was appropriate that we have our Celebration of Life here. And here's some pictures in case you didn't see of Ann earlier in her younger years, in her prime. These are when she came up to visit Janet and me in Alaska. And then this was when she was a princess back in the 40s. And now I understand where Janet got her fashion sense from, because she was always a fashion queen. But anyway, thank you, everybody. Please, thanks for coming. And is Kathy going to say something, or was there anybody else you're going to?
I was just going to say to you, you know, so many of us have wonderful memories. And if there's anything special that comes to mind about Ann that you would like to share, this is a private celebration of life, and it's because we all feel so close to you two. And we're just so grateful you're here. But one of the things I've got to say is how much Ann liked to cook. And one of the things that happened for me, Robbie was over eating some supper with her, and she made this wonderful ribs and sauerkraut. My son wanted to try some German food. And I think that was one of the things that sort of hurt her with her lack of sight, was her inability to cook, because she truly said how much she enjoyed cooking. But I just want to say something about you two. I have watched you, Phil, for the past 5 or 6 years. You talk about an unsung hero. Taking Ann where she needed to go. And you know, Janet was always behind you. You two set such an example of allowing her the dignity of aging gracefully. And I know that Kathy may not be very comfortable, but Kathy was sort of her surrogate daughter. She would help her feed and would do things for her when she didn't want anybody else to. And you talk about taking her to practice her fashion sense. Kathy was one. Anytime Janet and Phil needed a bit of a break and would get away, Kathy would step in, and she'd have to get Ann's debit card and take her for a little shopping, and she'd want to go to Coldwater Creek and a few other places. But we want to thank you, Kathy, because you truly are so loved by all of us. And if anybody else has another story they'd like to share, we're starting to get cold, but let's tell one or two.
John's going to sing.
Anybody?
I'll tell one.
Okay.
I think my sister, it must have been maybe 6 months ago, or not more than a year ago, but my sister was in town, and she's, I don't know if I can say, she's in her 40s or not. She had a dress on. And it was kind of a modest dress, but it was a little short. And Ann, this is the first time that they had met that night, I think. And they were saying goodbye to each other. And my sister gave Ann a hug, and Ann said, "My, your dress is short." We just all, the whole room just started cracking up.
It was funny. I remember that was such a good story.
Honesty.
Oh, yeah.
Honesty. She showed us honesty.
Yeah, but she noticed things.
Yeah, she really did have a wonderful fashion set. Anybody else? And if not, in closing, we have asked John, who is a wonderful operatic tenor, to sing one of his special songs in honor of Ann. So would you like to share that with us?
Before I sing, I did want to say I feel so privileged and so honored to be a part of this celebration of life. In Anna's honored memory and in celebration of a life well lived, I selected a song written by John Denver called Perhaps Love. And I did that because as we make our transition physically from the physical to the spiritual, the one thing that lives on for eternity is the love that's the source of our being, the love that we are, the love that we express while we're here, and the love that we will continue to be. So I will sing Perhaps Love written by John Denver. Perhaps love is like a resting place, a shelter from the storm. It exists to give you comfort. It is there to keep you warm. And in those times of trouble, when you are most alone, the memory of love will bring you home. Perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites you to come closer. It wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. Oh, love to some is like a cloud, and some as strong as steel. To some a way of living, for some a way to feel. And some say love is holding on, and some say letting go. And some say love is everything, and some say they don't know. Perhaps love is like the ocean, full of conflict, full of pain. Like a fire when it's cold outside, thunder when it rains. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memory of love will be of you. Oh, love to some is like a cloud, and some as strong as steel. To some a way of living, to some a way to feel. And some say love is holding on, and some say letting go. And some say love is everything, and some say they don't know. Perhaps love is like the ocean, full of conflict, full of pain. Like a fire when it's cold outside, thunder when it rains. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memory of love will be of you. My memory of love will be of you.
And we want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
And safe travel there, and we love you, and we know you're there basking in that unconditional love with that, just with our God, and no matter what happens, you've given us such joy. And now, Phil, would you like to tell us what we're doing next?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and always remember Ann for the life she lived, and she wanted us to have a little pizza party in her honor. So anybody who'd like to come down to Arte Pizza and join us, please do. And we've got, maybe we can ride together if anybody wants to. But anyway, we'll meet in about 15 minutes down at Arte Pizza. All right.